Hello and welcome to another session of Let's Get Real with Mona. Yes, we are in a new year, 2022. So happy new year to each and every one of you. And if you noticed, I am using a different location. As you know, I love new locations, but I just chose a different room in my home. I chose my office this time. And yes, it's a new year, so why not change? And little changes, you do know, create the big moves, right? So as you come in, let me know who's here, who's watching me from whichever part of the world you are in and you're joining us today. So please do say hello. It's always wonderful to be in this space with all of you. And yes, who would have thought 2022? We were just talking about it the other day, on New Year's Day, actually, about, when we were younger, for those of us who remembered when Star Trek first came out, and they would talk about the 2000s and 20s and 2030s, and we thought that it was such a long way in the future. And yes, many of us thought that we would be riding around in hovercrafts or just beaming up into space, beam me up, Scotty. Yes, those things are available, but not to the masses, not to all of us. And yet, it's important to know that it is still happening in the background. There's lots of inventions, there's lots of creations, a lot of innovation, but not as freely accessible by the majority of us on the planet. So this is such an incredible opportunity today, because I'm sure many of you are feeling the new frequencies, the new vibrations of the new year. And what I've done, which is really, really amazing for this year, is I have a frequency through a word for every month this year. And yes, for January, we're going to be looking at the theme of kindness in its various forms. So right now, what does kindness mean to you? What does it mean for you? How do you see kindness and how do you respond when you hear the word kindness? So let me share a little bit about my thinking about kindness. You see, for me, kindness is for me an action. It's how I treat others and how I treat myself. Because very often we can forget about how we treat ourselves. We could be very good to others, but do we actually treat ourselves well? Now, what does it actually mean? Why do I want to treat myself or others well? Well, it's because I want to care for myself and for others. It's, do I care about myself and do I care about others? For me, it's all about an abundant spirit. Because think about it. Are we actually being kind to ourselves when we don't allow our expansive self to show up? Are we being abundant and kind to others when we act like there's not enough in the world? And do you remember what happened at the beginning of the pandemic when people went into supermarkets and just packed their trolleys with loads and loads of food? And yes, the famous toilet roll, because people were so afraid that they wouldn't have. So is that being kind when we just want to hog everything for ourselves? No, I don't think so. So for me, kindness goes beyond, just doing these acts, these random acts of kindness. It's about how we show up for ourselves and others, how we treat ourselves and others. And I just want you to think about that for a minute. If you think about today being the 3rd of January in 2022, have you started the year being kind to yourself? Have you started the year being kind to others? Well, we can get pulled into little spaces and places that are part of our shadows that still wants to show up. And just by the way, Shadows come up to be transformed. Shadows come up to be transmuted. It's not there to hold us back. And if there's anything you do this year, give yourself the grace to understand that when something's coming up, when something's triggering you, it's not coming there to hurt you, harm you, cause you more pain. It's just there to be shifted. And that's one of the ways to express and experience kindness to oneself. So, being in the beginning of the year, what's the thing that's happening in everyone's mind? Well, setting New Year's resolutions and goal setting and going crazy out there to make sure that you manifest your dream life in 2022. Now, how many of you are feeling a bit anxious? Either because you've done it and you're not really feeling into what it is you've set as goals, or how many of you are judging yourself because you think that, okay, you didn't set your goals. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you have set goals yet or you haven't set goals yet. What I have found is that I don't like being in the frenzy of the energies that are out there. I generally love stepping back, connecting with my own energy, connecting with what's my truth, and then when it's in alignment for me, to then decide what is it that I want to experience in 2022. You see, or any year for that matter. Because you see, we can get so wrapped up in other people's dreams and other people's visions and other people's intentions that we can actually forget what's ours. We can get so wrapped up in the ego that we can forget what our soul really wants. So, if you're looking at designing your abundant life for 2022, and even for those of you who've already set your goals, how about just taking a step back, looking at where you are when you set your goal? Because think about it. If you still did it in 2021, even on New Year's Eve, you were still in the frequency of that. And yes, the energies come from 2022 into 2021, but you were still in that frequency. And now that you've stepped in this new energy, this expansive, abundant energy, I'm sure you've even felt and looked at your goals, if you did, after you wrote it, that maybe you're re-looking at one or two of them. So what could be the reason for that? Well, let's just look a little bit more into what impacts our decisions and our intentions and our goals for 2022 and beyond. And every time we set these goals, now you see, it doesn't matter what happened in 2021, because very often we can get hung up about what happened in 2021, and then we start judging and blaming and becoming disillusioned. But the thing is this, we have a new opportunity every year. Well, actually, we have a new opportunity every day to start afresh, to have a blank canvas, to paint the picture we want every day for our life. And this is what we have the opportunity to do again this year, irrespective of what happened last year, irrespective of what we achieved or we didn't achieve. The past is the past. All we can do is move forward, taking the lessons from the past and making the next year more magnificent than the previous one. So, have you designed your life for 2022 yet? And like I said already, whether you have or you haven't, there's always something that we pick up when we hear about goals and goal setting and New Year's resolutions and intentions. And today we're going to look at what happens and how to us when we don't have the foundational steps in place. You see, very often what happens? New Year's Eve comes, we quickly go scribble something down. Well, many people do that. That's why goals are not achieved. Many people, even many well-intentioned people like myself, I've done that in the past before I started becoming more focused, more conscious about how I set goals. Because you see, even setting goals, there's some magic to it. And we're going to be speaking more about that later on in the month. But for now, what happens most often? We set goals. Then come into January, there's things working, there's some things not working. You get to the end of January, somewhere into February, maybe even March, and you feel that, okay, some people abandon their health goals, their health and wellness and fitness goals. Then people had good intentions to start saving in the year. Then that goes down the tube. People decide, okay, I'm going to have a magical relationship this year. Then that doesn't work. And then eventually you see the goals, the New Year's resolutions just start slipping away. Now, some people will go on maybe till May, maybe till June, and then eventually they give up. Why do we give up? Well, we think we failed. We think we've done something wrong. We think that maybe the goals we set are not for us. Now, there's two ways to look at it. Maybe the goals you set for yourself were not yours, because there's even a way to set goals. But on what foundation were you trying to build and set those goals? Because if you know me, it's all about the foundations. I love strong foundations. And if there's anything that's weak and rickety and causing us to topple and fall over, well, then that doesn't really help us with designing our abundant life. Now, I'm sure you realize that, right? That if a house has a rickety foundation, well, have you seen it? Have you done my out with the old, in with the new creative visualization process to set strong foundations so you can build a masterpiece on it? Well, if you haven't, please do go sign up for it. It's either on the page that you're watching right now, or you can get it, reach out to me at support@princessmona.com and I'll send it to you. But go find out what's in your foundations. Set aside the old foundations and create new foundations. Now, here's the process I do before I even have an intention of what it is I want to experience in the new year, or even what goals I want to set. I love doing a reflection of the previous year. I love going back and looking at what happened, what worked, what didn't work, what was I clinging on to, how was I behaving over the past year, what were the golden nuggets that led me to successes in every area, and what were those things, the gremlins, the little sneaky, pesky little things hiding in the corners that were causing me to not achieve my goals. Now, you see, when we know what works, what do? We rinse and we repeat. We don't have to keep inventing the wheel. We rinse, repeat, and improve. And what doesn't work for us, well, then what do? Something different. Otherwise, we're going to get the same results if we keep doing the same things. And reflection of the past year helps to put us in a really, really powerful space. It helps us to move forward in an empowered way so we can design the abundant life we want to create in 2022 or whenever in the future you may be listening to this. So, do you have a reflective process? What is it? And how deep do you go? Now, I do a simple process, and some years I'll play around with what I'm doing, but generally this is how it is. And I keep it at a 7-step process. I can do a few more questions if I want to, and if I feel that I want to go deeper and deeper. But ideally, I think these 7 steps that I follow would benefit you as well if you're just starting, or maybe you use a similar process and maybe there's different questions in your process. So let me share with you how this works. Now, ideally, this is a journaling exercise. And yes, why do we write things? Whether you use a journal, a notebook, a notepad, whatever it is you want to write on, you can take a big sheet of paper to write on as well. The purpose of writing is to bring things out of our head where it's in the darkness, in the background, nobody can see what's going on in there. And when we write it, we put it on paper. We bring it into the light. We make it visible. Now, you know what happens when you make things visible. Well, the darkness dissipates. The pull or the hook that negativity, maybe you had a challenging year, that hook that it may have had on you, it dissipates. And what happens when you bring things into the light, that which is good amplifies. And then you actually get to see what it is that you can create. You see, because it brings clarity. It allows you to see the things that worked and the things that didn't work. So it's quite a fun process if you haven't tried it before, and I'll encourage you to do that. So here's how it works, the 7-stage process. The first step, you want to look at what your wins were for the past year. And here I want you to go deep, right? Don't just look at all the big, bold things that you did that ticked off all the bucket list items or the big goals that you set. Look at every single thing that was a win for you. For example, did you drink an extra glass of water sometime during the year, which then became a regular habit? Did you improve your healthy eating habits? Did you exercise for 5 minutes extra? Did you get up 5 minutes earlier to do something for yourself? It's not just about money and business and only the weight goals. It's about your relationships. Did you connect with more people? So go deep with it. And if you can, list at least 3 wins for each month. It's actually quite a fun process when you break it down like that. List out January to December and list out 3, and then you may have more than 3 per month. But at least start with that, because this is what happens. When you can see and acknowledge your wins, well, then the brain gets excited and it wants to celebrate more things. So what do you think you're setting yourself up for in 2022? More things to celebrate, more wins to experience, more abundance to experience, because this is what happens when you acknowledge your wins. You actually realize how magnificent your year has been. Now, I know many people have said that 2021 has been so challenging, and that's the energy that they're sitting in. But when you go sit down and you look, the smallest little thing, the teeniest, weeniest little thing, you are able to write down as a win. You see, your brain doesn't measure wins as big or small wins. Your brain just realizes, oh, we did something. Oh, yes, we achieved something. And then all the feel-good chemicals get activated. And then what do you think happens? Well, if you're feeling good, you know what happens. You suddenly see the abundance in front of you, opportunities to help you have more experiences of abundance and good, fabulous, amazing experiences. That's what acknowledging your wins does. Now, step 2. When you look at step 2, we look at what challenged us. Now, how many people don't want to look at what challenged them? Or you have the opposite. People want to just sit in the challenges. Now, here's the thing. If you're here today watching this, whether it's today on the 3rd of January in 2022, or whenever in the future you watch this, if you're there, you did something to work through the challenges, to overcome the challenges. You did something. So acknowledge the challenge. And what is it that you overcame? Was it fear of visibility? Was it fear of speaking on Facebook or YouTube? Was it reaching out to someone you hadn't spoken to in such a long time that you were able to go through the challenge and do that? So what is it, right? What was the challenge and what did you overcome? Now, in your challenges, what you would find are the patterns, and the patterns would lead us to our shadows. So here I'm teaching you how to find out what your shadows are, because it repeats itself. It repeats it and repeats it and repeats it until we acknowledge it. And it repeats itself in the form of challenges. Because you see, challenges aren't there to hold us back. Challenges are there to help us step forward and through it and find our gold on the other side. Because every time we get a bit more polished by breaking through this barrier that appears to be a challenge, well, we come out more shiny on the other side. So go deep with that exercise as well. Now, what is step number 3? Look at what was the most important thing you did for others, right? What is it that you did that brought joy to yourself and to others? Because that's going to be the thing that you can latch on to when you're going forward, because you realize that that was in alignment with your soul. So once again, it was something that brought joy to you and to others. Now, step 4, what did you do for the first time in 2021? Well, I went and I did a winemaking course. I don't drink wine, neither does my husband. And we hung out with our dear friend from the Alchemy of Abundance community, Peter Darrell. And we went together with his wife, Sue, and we attended a winemaking class. I mean, was that fun? I did a few other things last year that was for the first time, but that just stood out for me. It was fabulous because it was not just blending the wine, it was coming up with the name, coming up with a marketing strategy, drawing the logo out. It was just so entertaining for us four in the group because there were so many other groups. And then sharing that and celebrating the wins and the creativity of others there as well. That was really, really fabulous. Now, step number 5. What was the biggest lesson you learned in 2021? Now, here, I always ask that you go and look at your wins and your challenges, because through it, you find how strong you really are. Because to achieve a win, you had to do something. To move through a challenge, you had to step into your power. Whatever it was, your answers will be residing there. Step number 6. What can you let go of from 2021? What can you let go of? Be it people, things, identities, attitudes. What is it? Is it a chair that you sit in every time you go to a restaurant? Is it an item of clothing? Is it a book you've been hanging on to that you've been thinking that you want to read it for many years now, and years have gone by? What is it? And take the step and schedule it. And the final one is express gratitude for all your blessings. Now, here's the thing. Our blessings are not just in our wins and all the happy moments we get and get all excited about because, like, yay, we achieved something. Our blessings also come through our challenges. If you're willing to look for the blessings in the challenges. And do you know how you transmute your challenges very quickly? Is when you look at a challenge as a way through rather than something blocking your way. So when you see a challenge and you know in your heart, oops, there's a blessing in here for me, where is it? It's not here to stop me. It's here to help me move forward in a more powerful way. Then you get to embrace the blessing that's in what appears to be a challenge. Because remember, everything we experience is first through perception. We get to determine whether something is a win or a challenge based on how we perceive things. So are you ready to do this? Are you ready to step into 2022? Now, this is just the first part of designing your abundant life. There's a few other steps to go through, and let's look at how we do that through the rest of the month. But this is the first part. Look at what the past year gave you, allowed you to experience, the opportunities that came, the gifts that came wrapped in sandpaper. As Vis, my husband, loves saying, the challenges are gifts wrapped in sandpaper. So what were they for you? Now, remember, it's good to take in information, but what's really important is action. Because remember, without action, well, nothing materializes. So if you know me, I am, in addition to being an executive and abundant living coach, I am an action coach because nothing can happen if action does not follow a clearing that we've done, or some energetic process, or whatever it is we've done. There must be action. So, what is your action for this week? Will you schedule some quiet time? And it doesn't matter when in the year you get to encounter this material. It doesn't matter that we're already in this new year, because many people think that you can't set goals at any time in the year or change your goals or have new intentions or new resolutions. And this is just, by the way, the frequency of 2022. It's not cast in stone. You can play with the energies. You can do what you love to do when you love to do. So you can set some intentions and goals in January. Then come April or May, maybe you realize, hey, you've shifted your energy, your vibration, your container's expanded. Maybe you've gone on a coaching call and a coaching program, something within you and the goals you originally set, even if it was at the end of 2021, are no longer aligned to who you're becoming. Then you step away from that, and it's okay. Now, we don't get taught this in mainstream society, that it's okay for us to change our mind, because we are told that we have to stick with one thing. As soon as we decide on something, we have to stick with it. Yes, there are pros and cons to that, but this is what living an abundant life is about. We do everything from an expanded, empowered state. So like I said, schedule some time this week and sit with a notebook. Make sure that you're undisturbed. It could take an hour for you. It could take maybe a bit longer for some of you. But schedule some time and start the process. Because remember, if you want different results this year, then it's time that you did things differently. Because the same way of doing things is going to produce the same results. So what do you want this year? Now, whilst you're doing this process, what I'd love for you to do is, because you see, 2022 is all about the feminine frequencies. No, it's not female, it's the sacred feminine. So, what do you think the sacred feminine is about? The most important thing is for us to get in touch with our feelings, get in touch with what's sitting in our heart space. And this is what you want to do. You want to feel, you want to sense, you want to notice what's happening when you do this exercise, when you even think about it, whilst you've even been listening to me and watching me today. How have you been feeling? Because you see, awareness, that's where the gold really starts coming in. Because the minute you become aware of something, you can't actually go back. You have to go forward. And this is where a lot of struggle and challenge comes in, because we become aware of something that doesn't work for us, and then we want to backtrack. We want to change it because we want to go back into the familiar. But unfortunately, change doesn't work like that. The minute something shifts and changes, it's a new frequency. It's a new space. It's moved. And if something's moved, well, we've got to move into that new space. And it's not challenging, it's not frightening, if you go on that journey in the right community, with the right person, with the right people, with the right guide, with the right coach, with the right mentor. But we have to start practicing it on our own as well. We can't just be dependent on other people to get us there. Yes, it's great to work with someone, but we must attempt these things. Like, how far can I go? Okay, then it gets scary. Then I go seek help. And yes, you know, we have affirmations every week. So, your affirmation for this week is, I give myself permission to reflect on my many blessings. Because, yes, that's what 2021 brought for all of us. It brought blessings for all of us. For some of us, those blessings were wrapped in layers and layers and layers of paper before we actually got it, gift wrap, or for some it was really wrapped in sandpaper. But I want you to know this. You are in a new year. You are in a new frequency. You are in a new space. And that gives you the opportunity to create a new masterpiece. You have been given a new canvas, clean canvas, and you have been given the opportunity to start fresh. Now, will you allow yourself to start fresh? To start afresh, to start with fresh, clean, new energy? Because that's what we are here to do. And that's how you're going to make 2022 and beyond magical. You're going to keep choosing every single day this new, fresh, vibrant, magical, abundant energy that 2022 brings to you. So I'm just checking if there are any questions here. Well, we have had lots of exciting challenges with technology today. You see some things and then you don't see some things, but this is part of being in flow. We don't get stuck because there's challenges. We move through it. And if you want to know one of the secrets to abundance, it's about constantly being in flow. So this practice will help you to be in flow so that when you look at your goals again, when you look at your intentions again, you'd be more open to the expanded state of abundance that actually awaits you. So until next week, until we chat again, ciao for now.